I'll call the meeting to order then, since it's what, 6:03, with Emmanuel Daskalakis, Mike King, Richard Swenson, and myself, George Barrett, present. Mark Bianco and Mike Baptiste have not signed on as of yet. The first order of business is a special permit for map 105, lot C1, C2, C3, and 1002A, Charlotte Furnace Road, care of JC Engineering. And I believe this is just to go over the final documents, Ken, is that?
Yeah, what I needed was a final decision on the conditions of approval. So we know what, that the decision can be written up. I put a draft decision in the folder, if anybody saw that.
Yep, I see it. So you're looking for us to fill in the blanks where you've got the yellow X's?
And to add anything else that you think is appropriate as well.
One thing that's come up since we last met is I think it might be prudent to add solar fields to the prohibited list, since it's a little vague in the bylaw. I don't know.
Yeah, the idea of a solar field being something that if it was just for the purpose of the residents of the subdivision, could be put into the open space possibly, and would circumvent the would create a problem with the intent of an open space plan.
So we can specifically exclude a solar field in this agreement?
Yes, we can. One of the things we might want to do is actually two things actually. One is to put into the special permit that there's a restriction against solar fields in the open space. And the other is to get the documentation on the open space, what's filed on the land records to restrict the property to passive recreational uses. And be specific in the documentation that gets filed.
Hey, Ken, Emmanuel here. Is this a follow-up to a discussion that I wasn't present at? I'm not sure I'm following you.
No, this is something that just came up in a conversation I had with George this afternoon.
Okay, would you mind repeating the issue?
That there's a potential for solar field in the open space parcel. We want to make sure it doesn't happen. So we just be very specific about that as a restriction.
Yeah, that sounds.
Yeah. In the bylaw that created cluster, utilities is listed, which is kind of vague. So.
Okay, good point.
Yeah.
Agreed.
I think it's something.
I think the intent was if you needed a utility line to come through the open space to service a home is one thing, but.
Right.
So if there's any other issues with that.
The other was my belief that there was a setback for the houses from the street, so that there could potentially be more of a buffer in between the street and the houses in the lots. And I don't know if that was actually part of the discussion of the board or not.
It was. We actually,
Agreed.
as I remember, we actually discussed a 50-foot no touch, if you want to call it that, or a landscape buffer between the home and the roadside.
My memory is weak on that, Mike. Was it only 50 feet or was it 100? I don't remember. I'll trust your memory. You're younger.
It was a 50 feet no landscape zone, so that their lawns couldn't get any closer to the road than 50 feet.
Ah, okay.
So I guess if you look at an average front yard, you're probably looking at a 75 to 80 foot
That-
setback.
That's consistent with my recollection. Yeah, okay. Yeah.
Is there anything else outstanding, Ken?
I think there should be restriction on the right of way, the 50-foot right of way on the side of the parcel that accesses the open space in the rear, that the right of way is for the purpose of the open space only. So we don't create a subdivision road that is going to access property beyond the open space and use up that area for that purpose. Unless we're actually laying out a subdivision road in the with that access to the rear.
Yeah, that wouldn't, I don't think that would hurt anything to state it. I think there's a solar field behind it, isn't there?
I believe so.
But it could become access to that, or,
John Churchill logged on. Maybe he can clarify if there's anything necessary to additional information. Oh, don't have audio with John. Maybe an issue with the. Well, until he gets audio, I guess that would be my recommendation, would be to restrict the access.
I think his audio's, well, no, it's not showing it either on our. Wow, 15 participants, that's pretty good.
John, you can call in if you use the number.
Who else is here from? He's the only one I see from JC, right?
Yeah, that's the only one from JC.
Well, shall we continue?
Yeah, that was the only points that I had on this one.
I don't know if I'm able to. Do anything about it. He might be trying to call in, and I just sent him a text.
What's his number? Well, we probably shouldn't put the number on it. Is that somebody there?
Yep, can you hear me?
Yeah, I can hear you.
Okay, yeah, it's Ken Conti from Beals and Thomas. Sorry, had some technical difficulties.
Okay.
All right, you'll come later.
Number. His is 774-263-0001. Oh, I just see he's muted. He's come up as muted, so. Oh, he just
Are you
unmuted.
there?
There you are.
Although I haven't done this in a while, so sorry, guys. I just got on. I don't even know what's going on.
All right, we're talking about the open space subdivision right now and the conditions of approval. We have a restriction against solar cells being put into the open space,
Okay.
and the restriction of the right of way being used for the purpose of access to the open space only.
Correct. Yep. Open space only.
Only.
So that access road can only be used for the open space. Is that what you're talking about?
Yeah. What was the intent of that right of way?
The intent of the right of way was to be able to access the property out back. I think that's why we left it at 60 feet. What's the width of that? It was like 60 feet, I think it was.
50-foot right of way.
50 foot. Yeah, that was the purpose of being able to access that property out back, behind the project.
Is that the solar field, John?
It is the solar field, correct?
All of it, or is there access to beyond the solar field?
Look at the A&R plan. To see that. I would have to. Let me look. I'm gonna have to look at the plans. Planning board. So the purpose was for that is to give a buffer to Bayside Agricultural. Was one of the purposes, and yes, that piece out back is the solar field, correct? Yep, that 80 make piece that still owns, that's the solar field property right there. So that gives them an access to that solar field in the future if they needed it.
Is there any other access to the solar field, or is this the only one?
They access it further south, I believe it is on Charlotte Furnace, currently right now. They don't access it from this property right now, if that's the question. However, they have an access through it. It's further south of this property, and it goes up and into the property. But it's not a direct route to the solar field, if you will.
So basically, having that access allows them to more uses for the property south of there, right? Between there and 495.
Yeah, in case that access south becomes eliminated, it gives them an option to come through this piece, which is a direct access point. That piece, if you look on a big map, is probably about 500-600 feet south of before the property we're discussing, almost by the power lines. And it comes through a back gravel road to that property. That's how they accessed it. They don't access it currently right now through this property here.
Can we put a restriction on it so it's an easement only?
It's an easement only.
For whatever purposes, the access.
To the rear parcel is what it is. So we're not landlocking that parcel out back. I mean, anything they do would have to come before you again on that. If they want to create a road or anything they do has to come before you.
Oh, that's the reason why I was wondering, because the depending on what's put back there, the radius may not be appropriate for the larger size vehicle that comes through there.
Mhm.
If it was a major roadway. So I would suggest that we put an easement on it for whatever purposes it would be. That would also go into the land records as to a restriction on the construction of within that right of way.
Yeah, or you could put a restriction, any use or any use by that right of way to access the property needs to go before the planning board. Something to that effect. I mean, it's a parcel, it's created for a future, so you don't landlock a parcel. You know what I'm saying? So I don't know what their intentions were or what they're looking to do with that. That's, they just want to have in the future, just, good planning, because they have I don't know how many acres back there behind this property. There's abundance of acreage behind this property.
So,
I mean, that's essentially what a right of way is. A right of way is an easement.
mhm.
I mean, and if they're going to do or pave or do anything within that right of way, it has to go before this board. They're not going to put a roadway into nowhere.
I think it should go into the special permit that there's that review. If that right of way is going to remain there, that the specification of further review for construction of the access in that right of way.
Oh yeah, absolutely. Well, we're not proposing anything at this time. So I would just say that basically anything that's to be done on that label, the parcel, whatever it is, needs to go before, any use of that, roadway or needs to go in front of the planning board. If you recall, this property was subdivided under an A&R probably 3 or 4 different times. And it's always had a right-of-way parcel to that solar field out back. Every single iteration that came before this board had access to that property out back. So you didn't landlock a parcel. So even all the previous A&R plans have had, it was 60 feet wide. There was an 80-foot wide one. So there was always the intention to not landlock a parcel out behind this.
That's correct. That's from the record that I've seen. That is correct.
Right. So we're just following along with that same concept, that don't landlock all the pieces out behind us. It has no reflection on our project at all. It's just a matter of not, good planning in the future to not landlock a very large parcel of land.
All right, we'll put that into the conditions of the special permit.
Okay.
On the filing on the land records.
Yep, perfect.
Anything further on those conditions?
What was you said a house setback? I saw a house setback XXX. Would you guys, I just barely, when you just, I didn't see anything or hear any of the conditions, so.
50 feet.
They just brought up the 50-foot setback from, or I don't want to call it a no disturb, but
Landscape buffer.
yeah.
Yeah.
From Furnace Road, which I think we talked about in the public hearing.
Yes, we did. Yeah, it just said XXX, so I'm just making sure it was what we talked about. That's all. Okay. No, perfect. Thank you.
So can I get a motion? Anybody?
You only have 2 choices.
Yep.
Motion to accept based on the conditions discussed this evening.
Motion made by Mike King. I get a second.
I'll second it.
Any further discussion? Second by Emmanuel. All in favor? Emmanuel,
Aye.
Mike,
Aye.
and I from myself. I don't know if Richard has a stake in this or not, but I would say it's not a,
It's a special permit.
yeah, so he does get a vote in that.
He can get a vote on that if he's acting as an associate member. It's
Yeah.
replacing somebody.
Are you with us, Richard? Where is he? Where
I
is he?
saw him a minute ago.
Yep. Well, we'll move along. Let's,
He's giving you the thumbs up.
oh, is he? Oh, there he is. When did you become a mime? All right, 4-0-0. What happened to my screen here? I don't know where you all went, but. The next order of business is an approval not required plan for map 105's lot C1, C2, C3, and 1002A, Charlotte Furnace Road, Kara JC Engineering.
Yeah, this is the A&R for the open space plan.
Passed.
Which is the same plan that we looked at for the special permit. I don't know if there were any other additions that we had. Or any changes that were made. Is there a date on that, Ken? We referenced it.
John, do you have the date on that one?
The date on the plan is, we just, we put the, you can hear me, right, everybody? George?
Yeah.
So we put the date of the plan was done fairly recently, more recent, if you will, because when we expected the subdivision or the special permit approval on the signature block, we wanted to make sure that this A&R plan references the special plan, the special permit approval. So now that the date is today of that special plan approval, you'll see that we actually, so the only change on that plan was you fill in the special date, the special permit plan approval date in the signature block, just to
So you're saying the signature block will put in today's date as the date of the plan?
signature block, and in the note that it references the special permit as well.
All right, so the A&R will be drafted up and we'll have it endorsed by George when you get it into the office.
Yeah, you already have it. You have that Mylar, Ken.
Oh, it has to be, well, we just write in the date for the note?
I left it. We left the blank so you could fill it in with them.
Oh, I'll fill it in. Okay. I thought you were going to do that, but I'll fill it in then.
Well, we didn't know when the date of this meeting was going to be, so it kept
Right.
on changing. So that's why. So we finally just decided just to leave an underscore so that you can handwrite it in.
Okay, fair enough.
Yeah.
And Ken, what plan are we looking at? Is that it's hard to take an action without knowing what plan we're looking at.
The
This-
plan is called an A&R plan Rev 1, copy 3. It's a PDF in the Dropbox.
Is it dated March 3rd, 2020? In the title block? Is it the black and white plan or the one with color?
Let me see. Was issued. There you go. Yep. It's March 3rd, 2020. Correct.
March 20, I'm sorry,
March 3rd, 2020.
March
March
3rd.
3rd. Yeah, okay, all right, thank you, thanks.
Yeah, no revision date on it. And then in the signature block, you'll see where the previous iterations, we have approval under subdivision control law not required, and the Wareham Planning Board approves this plan in accordance with a special permit granted for a residential cluster development issued. We had a date there. We actually specified dates because we were anticipating approval on a certain date. So we left that blank. So George, when you sign this, just make sure you fill in the date of the March 12th, the issued the March 12th, tonight's date of the previous hearing. Okay. And that just closes the loop on being able to record this.
Yep. I'm just looking for those. Dropbox issues, yeah.
Mhm.
Thought I had them all, but can't find them now.
John,
Yeah,
what, at the bottom left corner, north, I guess, the north corner, there's a note, future roadway easement. What is that?
that's what we were just discussing, probably. Let me look at that.
It's
Future,
not the, it's next to the 50-foot wide access. It's to the right, to the south of it. There's a strip of land, looks like 10 feet.
that's the radius. That allows for a radius for that 50-foot wide
But-
access.
But the north lot of the lot, excuse me, the north line of the lot is not contiguous with the 50-foot wide access. I understand what the, why there would be the radius, but there's a 10-foot gap all the way up. I'm just curious, why is it? Why doesn't the lot go all the way to be contiguous with the 50-foot width line, the south line of the access road?
You're talking lot 1.
Yes, sir.
So the 10-foot was brought up at the public hearing was that the regulations said that you needed to be 10, not 10 feet. It said you needed what's the regulation state? Something about you need a buffer, not a buffer. You need a strip of land between the adjacent property owners and the lots. So we agreed upon a 10-foot strip on the north and the south to allow for access to the open space from Charlotte Furnace Road. So that's why you'll see on the south, we have that 10-foot as well, next to Master Millwork. So the regulations were saying that you need to have you can't bring the lot lines straight up to the property line. So if anybody ever does use that access parcel 12, we wanted to make sure that we still had a buffer between lot 1 and that parcel.
Is that because it's cluster zoning?
Correct. Yeah, it's in the cluster zoning regulations to.
So we're following the cluster zoning. Sorry. Thank you. Thanks for your answer.
Yes.
Well, what about the front then? What about on the road? There's no gap there.
You'll never have a gap. You have to abut a roadway. Is this Emmanuel speaking?
Yeah.
Emmanuel, you have to have access to a public road. You have to have access. You can't have a buffer. You have to have frontage. In order to have frontage, you have to have legal direct contact to a roadway.
Oh, here we go again. I don't want to dispute with you. That's not a good answer, but let it go. The thing is past us now, but that's okay. Thank you, John.
You're very welcome.
I'm trying to get back to my Zoom here, and I can hear you, but can't see you.
What's the matter, George?
I can hear you, but I can't see you because I was trying to access some of the documents.
I'll see if I can make that my picture, George, so you guys can zoom in on my picture, maybe.
Might lose me temporarily. Where'd you go? There you are. John, if you're trying to show us something, I don't think your video is on.
No, I was trying to put the background for the plan so you can see the plan.
Mhm.
I'm still learning how to use this Zoom thing.
We're all on a learning curve.
It's not working. No, I can't do it.
Anyway, no more questions regarding this A&R?
No,
Any action to be taken?
I don't have anything.
You want to make a motion, Mike?
You want me to make, I can make all the motions today?
You're a
You
good motion-
are on this one, that's for sure.
We'll double your pay for this one.
I make a motion to accept the A&R as presented.
Is there a second?
I'll second if you can hear me.
Hey, there you are. Discussion. None? All in favor? Aye. I gotta do a roll call, sorry. Mike King,
Aye.
Emmanuel,
How many do you need?
3.
And you, Mike, and Richard.
I don't think Richard can act on an A&R. I'm not, is that correct, Ken?
It's supposed to be only special permits.
Aye,
Is that Emmanuel?
Yes.
it was.
And I from me, so.
I just want to state for the record that this is not consistent with the true intent of cluster zoning. I'm voting to approve it because it does meet the requirements of A&R. But it is not, I want to go on record, this does not meet the spirit of cluster zoning. Thank you.
That
This
was,
is something, if the board feels strongly about it, we can take up as a potential modification amendment to the zoning bylaws in a future
Yes,
meeting.
and we can, yeah, and let's use this as a perfect example.
your objection is noted, Emmanuel.
Thank you, thank you.
Thank you, gentlemen. Next order of business is the surety proposal for Patterson Road subdivision, coastal cultivars.
Right,
One thing I noticed on that, Ken, it was for 1 year,
that's right.
and it was normally our approvals are based on a 2-year. So somebody's going to have to watch that, or how are we gonna-
They've been requested to extend the time on the document.
So this is an extension of 1 year.
No. They've been asked to change the document to make it a longer time period rather than just the 1 year.
Oh, they've made that request, or they'll do it if they don't get it done in a year.
No, I asked them to do that before we approve the bond.
Okay, I get you. This has been approved by council?
That's what the only thing the council said was to extend the time.
Okay.
So
So,
you could vote to approve it with an extension, with a longer time period, with a 2-year time frame. It has to go to the Board of Selectmen anyway for approval from them as well too, before it is final.
I thought it only had to go for release.
Indication I have is that they have to okay the bond as well as the release.
I don't think they have a call on that, but I see somebody raising his hand. Any questions on the surety? Could I get a motion to approve?
Motion to approve.
Second,
Motion made by Mike King, seconded by Emmanuel Deskalakis. Any other discussion? All in favor?
aye.
Let me do the roll call again. Sorry. Mike King,
Aye.
Emmanuel,
Aye.
and I for myself. I don't know if Richie gets a say on that one. I don't think so. So 3, 0, 1. Very good. Next, we have the public hearing for definitive subdivision plan for Rosebrook Place, map 109A, block 1, lot A1, to create 2 new lots. I do not have the public hearing announcement there, so I would ask that we waive that reading of the announcement.
Well, I can read it, I think, if I have it here.
Okay.
The Wareham Planning Board will hold a public hearing on May 11th, 2020, online, starting at 6 p.m. in Wareham, Mass. 02571, to consider a definitive subdivision for Rosebrook Place, located in Wareham, at Wareham Assessors Map 109A, Block 1, Lot A1, to allow the creation of 2 new lots. The online meeting may be accessed at the Zoom access point.
Thank you, Ken. And all the paperwork, the green cards and everything have all been returned.
We have the receipts for sending out. We don't have all the green cards back yet.
How about the documentation for this? Does everybody have plans, or can we access them easy enough?
You should be able to access them on the Dropbox link. This would be folder D, 420 definitive subdivision, Rosebrook Place.
So who is here this evening to represent this?
I am Ken Conti with Beals and Thomas.
Okay. I will give you the floor or the screen.
Thank you. Thank you. The screen, yes. My name is Ken Conti. I'm with Beals and Thomas. I'm a professional land surveyor and principal. And here tonight on behalf of 80 Mape's Company, which is presenting a definitive subdivision, creating a short roadway to provide legal frontage for 2 lots off of Rosebrook Place off of Cranberry Highway. The purpose of this creation of this roadway is to create 2 additional tax map parcels. And the way that we had initially attempted to submit this to the board several months ago through the A&R process, but it was retracted, and we had coordinated with the town's consultant to develop the strategy to create the legal frontage for these 2 lots, which property consists of a fully built out commercial property, which consists of a 35 Rosebrook Place, which is a apartment unit style building. And then you have the all other parcel that houses the commercial and retail buildings that are along Cranberry Highway in that area. Because this is kind of a fit to the existing constructed and approved property through the special permit, we are requesting several waivers to the subdivision regulations, all of or most of which are relative to the dimensional standards. The existing driveway is going to create the roadway, and we've attempted to do the best we can, and we've worked again with the town's consultant to come up with a waiver list and make sure that the roadway meets all the design standards that were already previously approved. Do you want to go through each waiver individually? Is that the process?
There's a letter from Charlie Rowley in the folder, the Dropbox folder. It goes through the waivers that he suggests as well.
Sure.
Ken, could I ask you please to identify the lots that you're discussing by number? I mean, where could you walk me through the map, please, through drawing number? I think it's plan 4, right? Drawing 4.
Yeah,
Just-
in the set. Yeah,
Just
there's
so I can
actually
follow you.
one of the comments that Charlie had was that he would like us to include an index sheet to show the overall parcel. I think it would have been better to have that with the submission. I wish I had an opportunity to do that. I would have given it to you. But currently, the development consists of 2 lots. A lot B, which houses the hotel in the back of the property. That is really not part of this subdivision. That lot has adequate frontage, and we created that lot through the A&R process. The other remaining lot out there right now is currently lot A1. Our proposal is to create this cul-de-sac called Rosebrook Place. Oh, not cul-de-sac, roadway called Rosebrook Place. And then we are going to create lots A2 and A3, which are the 2 lots that I described earlier, which are the apartment buildings, which is lot A3. And then the 3 retail buildings will consist of lot A2.
So before this happens, the apartment building is by itself on a larger lot? And
Yes,
not,
the apartment building and the 3 buildings out front are all on the same lot right now.
okay.
And the new roadway is actually what's currently a driveway, is that?
Yeah, so currently there's a lease plan that we created that separates all the property, and then there's a common area and driveway area that extends beyond the roadway that we're creating tonight, but the width is the same. So to be consistent, with the all the agreements that are in place right now with respect to the leases out there, we've given the new roadway the same width, but just short, a bit shorter than the existing common driveway.
Are you removing the driveway that's there now to get to 5 Brothers and the bank?
Yeah, there's no change in any of the physical access points. This is really just morely an administrative purpose of taking an existing, I'll call it access easement, and making the first part of it a right of way with frontage. So we're not changing. There's no proposed construction associated with these plans. Everything has already been created, approved, and completed.
I'm sorry, just for understanding what I'm looking at, the road or the driveway that currently takes one to the restaurants and the bank and so on. It's not shown on the plan. It's just,
Actually- I think if you go to sheet 6,
I'm on sheet 4.
yeah, if you go to sheet 6, it shows all the as-built conditions. So you can see the access points. The driveway that you take to get into that
Yep.
development is where the new roadway, the new right of way is going to be.
I'm sorry.
So looking at this, it looks like you're taking out some of the landscape features in that front area to accommodate the width of the road.
Well, we're including those landscape features within the right of way of the road.
There'll be no change in the driveway the way it's done right now.
There's no change in the physical appearance
So
on the
this is
site other than,
just an exercise to create frontage.
that's right.
Correct.
And Ken, did Charlie have any other comments on this?
No, he thought it was fine as is with, as long as the waivers were identified.
Want to just run through those verbally?
Sure. So the first waiver that actually Charlie identified was with respect to a request to waive the preliminary plan submission, which we did not have a preliminary plan submission because everything has been already constructed, and we had some preliminary meetings informally to go over the concept, but there was no official preliminary submission. So Charlie thought it'd be best to have the board consider and waive that preliminary plan for this. Again, mostly because there's no construction.
I'm reading from Charlie's notes, and it says that the rules and regulations stipulate that these developments require a preliminary subdivision plan. And a waiver from this requirement would be in order per Charlie's note, given the nature of the project and the fact that the project as a whole is under an existing special permit. I'm not saying I understand all that, but I get the general gist of it. And I'm sorry, Ken, I'm just stating exactly what Charlie had said for everyone's benefit.
I think it would probably be easier if we tackled each one of these waivers as we go through them.
I think that's the one that we're talking about, isn't it, George? Or did I screw up?
He has others, so if we could get a vote on this one at this point.
Yep.
Whether to approve the waiver or not, that would probably expedite things.
I can make motions. I'll make a motion to approve the waiver for section 3A.
No, this all comes under the special permit, doesn't it, Ken?
It does.
So he can, so motion's made by Mark and the second.
It was made by Richard.
Richard made it.
Oh, who made the motion? Richard made the motion. Who made the second?
Mike,
I'll second it. Oh, sorry, Mike.
that's okay. You can have it if you like it.
Any discussion? All in favor? Mike,
Aye.
Emmanuel,
Aye.
Richard,
Do I get to vote on this? I
Yeah.
assume so. Aye.
and I for me. Unanimous. Thank you. Next waiver.
So the next waiver is section 4B, the definitive plan concepts. We are seeking an all-encompassing waiver from the plan content requirements of the regulations, such as professional stamping requirements by an engineer, appropriate block for the town regulations such as professional to the clerk's signature, plan scale, and a recording block for the planning board members to sign appropriately. I believe we've provided, yeah, on the lotting plans, we have provided, the clerk's signature block and those requirements on there. Other requirements, not being met, it required 2-foot contours to be shown. We're showing 1-foot contours. We're also seeking a waiver from section 4B to requirements due to the fact that the site has already been developed and there's no earthwork disturbing activities, which is required, typically required for the definitive subdivision process. There is information related to the topography, the street design, and the drainage depicted on the plans. The applicant, we are not including a standalone utility plan. We have an all-encompassing existing conditions plan, which shows everything that's been built out there, and it's already been approved by the special permit. So we're seeking waiver to show just some of the standard details that are typically shown on definitive plan set.
So you're asking for a waiver for,
Section 4B, 22 to 28.
thank you, Ken. Any comments from the board?
Nope.
Is there a motion to be made?
Yeah, move to approve.
Motion made by Emmanuel, seconded by
Mike,
Mike. Discussion? All in favor?
Aye.
Yeah, Emmanuel, Mike,
Aye.
aye.
Richard, did you get that?
Aye.
Thank you. And aye for me. I'll get used to this eventually. Motion carries. Anything further, Ken? More waivers?
We got which can,
You.
Right, again, you.
let's see. Section 4C, the performance guarantee, we're seeking a waiver from this section, which requires us to provide security for the construction. Again, because it's all developed and completely built. I will say that the only thing that we haven't done would be setting the proposed bounds. So I don't know if that would have anything to do with this performance guarantee, but that would be the one thing that we have not done yet until after the approval. So that might be something that you take up after the approval, I guess. But everything else has been built. The roadway's been built, the drainage system's in place, the sewer's been connected. So we're seeking a waiver from the performance guarantee.
Questions? The bound aspect of it, is that a requirement, or is that only for acceptance?
That's a
It's a
requirement. Charlie had suggested putting them in.
I'm sorry, Ken, what did you say?
Charlie had suggested putting in the bounds.
Yeah, and we agreed to. We're waiting for the meeting and the approval, making sure that everything's okay, and then we'll set them.
I'm sorry, Ken. Ken, can you give me a little more color on that? I'm reading Charlie's note, and obviously you're closer to his thoughts than I am. Can you? All right. I'm reading this, and Charlie says the waiver should not be granted.
Did he say pending the installation of the bounds, Rich?
No, that's not in there.
No. See, there's a level of context that I'm missing here underneath the high-level review report that Charlie did.
Yeah. So the one reason, the one thing that Charlie had requested is, you're correct, is that we strike the performance guarantee with respect to preparing and providing a covenant for the release of the lots. So we've actually coordinated with our Makepeace's attorney, and he has a covenant that is going to be prepared and provided following this meeting that will meet that requirement. So I guess in essence, we don't have to worry about that waiver anymore. We're going to strike that waiver, and we will provide a covenant for the property.
So in section, let me, just to make sure I understand, in section 4C of all the waivers that were requested, Charlie's calling out one particular waiver in that section that he had some concerns about. And Ken, what you're telling me is that one has been addressed, and that there's others in there that we're going to move forward with. Ken Buckland, is that your impression?
Yeah, we'll have to submit the document, prepare the documentation and approve it to a file in our land records to show the process of creating the lots and releasing them for use.
Okay, so Ken, you're stating that the Makepeace attorneys are preparing the covenant documentation. Tells me that we've addressed Charlie's concern that he's reported out to us.
Yes.
And you also said that this makes this waiver unnecessary. Is that what I thought?
That's correct.
Is that your interpretation of it, Ken?
Yeah, to follow through with the requirements of that section, we'll have to just go through the paperwork. There'll be no, there won't have to be any money bond put up or anything, any surety for that purpose. But we'll follow through with the rest of the documentation that's required under the process.
Is Charlie on the line?
No, he's not.
Do you have further
George?
waivers you're seeking?
Yes. Yep.
Can we go back to A? So how is it standing now? The waiver is not being requested, right?
That's
right.
correct.
And does that mean that the covenant will be prepared and adopted?
Correct.
And so how do we document that this will happen?
It's part of the process of the approval, the subdivision process that you go through. In terms of the steps you take, you go through and endorse the plan. Then
Okay.
the paperwork is followed through separately and addressed as it comes through the process.
Okay, so the waiver will not be granted.
Correct.
Right. We're not requesting a waiver. We'll provide the covenant.
All right.
And the next waiver is section 4H, which is inspection. Again, because the property has been completely constructed and approved and built, we are requesting a waiver from the construction and inspection requirements for the roadway, drainage system, and use of materials. All that has already been gone through with the special permit, so we are requesting a waiver from the inspections.
Questions, anyone?
Nope, seems reasonable.
Can I get a motion regarding that waiver?
Motion to approve?
Just that one waiver? Yeah, I second
I'm
that.
going through one at a time.
All right, second.
Motion made by Mike, seconded by Emmanuel. All in favor? Mike,
Aye.
Emmanuel,
Aye.
Richard,
Aye.
and I for me. Next,
And next one is section 5C-2-F for location and alignment. That regulation states that the property lines at the intersection streets shall be rounded. Again, this is because of the constructed curb inlets fall within the proposed right-of-way, and the existing lease lines that we've created out there are consistent with this common, the common driveway access point. So we've asked for relief from the property lines to be rounded at the intersections. We spoke, we discussed it with Mr. Rowley, and he agreed.
Move to approve.
Second,
motion made by Emmanuel, seconded by Mike. All in favor? Mike,
aye.
Emmanuel,
Aye.
Richard,
Aye.
and I for myself. Thank you.
And this one is section 5C-3-C for street width. Actually, I think Mr. Rowley requested that we remove this waiver. It's not, we don't need to request a waiver. We just need to get the planning board to approve or accept the width that we are proposing for the commercial street. Again, it's 49.5 feet wide is what we're proposing, which is, falls within the existing paved areas and access points. So it's not a waiver request at this point. It's just as part of the process to have the planning board approve that width. Is that correct, Ken?
That's
Move
correct.
to approve the 49.5 feet. Oh, sorry, Ken.
That's all right. I'm looking for the board to make the determination that the roadway is correct for the subject property.
That's correct.
I moved.
Won't we be doing that upon approval of the definitive plan?
Yes.
Correct.
So we just reference the plan number and takes care of that.
You got it. Okay, the next waiver is with request to section 5-C-5 for dead-end streets. We're requesting a waiver pertaining to a dead-end street. Tenant at the terminus of our right-of-way, the physical pavement continues and allows for all emergency vehicles to have their access points and turn around to return back out to the street. So we did not provide a typical cul-de-sac at the end of this roadway. So therefore, because the access has already been granted and approved through the special permit, we're asking for a waiver.
Did we provide one on a easement on the other property so it's there but it's not constructed, or how was that? How was that handled so that could not be interfered with, the ability to turn around? And is there any need to do that?
I believe it was all addressed during the special permit. Exactly what was created, I'm not certain at this point.
You're saying that the design was approved in the special permit and it allowed for emergency access vehicles through the property.
That's correct.
And so it's included on the special permit that it affects all the properties shown on the plan.
Yes.
So is there, again, in approving the plan, aren't we basically approving this, or do we need a specific waiver? I suppose,
Charlie agreed with it, the waiver request for relief from the dead end cul-de-sac.
I think you have to think of it being if the project wasn't there underneath, if the special permit was released, what would you do with what's underneath on the ground?
Well,
And
that's,
so the waiver is appropriate.
Yeah, I think we would have to ask for the waiver on that, on those terms.
mhm.
Move to approve.
Second.
Motion made by Emmanuel, seconded by Mike. Any further discussion? All in favor, Mike,
Aye.
Emmanuel,
Aye.
Richard,
Aye.
and I for me. Anything more?
Yeah, we got a few more.
You got a whole list?
Yeah, I do. The next one is section 6A drainage. We're seeking a request from the waiver for the drainage requirements. The proposed parcels and the right-of-way are utilizing the existing drainage and stormwater system that's already been built and is in place and approved by the special permit. And therefore, we are requesting a waiver from the any proposed or additional drainage requirements that are already in place.
I think what you can do is actually list the next series, the drainage, streetlights, street trees, sidewalks, and curbs, all as part of the design requirements as waivers for that are being requested.
Yeah, exactly.
Because they're all
Relative.
existing situations now under the current special permit, right? And
Correct.
then it makes no sense to impose or change any of the processes that have already been put in place.
The design is already in place, exactly.
Thank you.
So can we make a motion to accept? Can we make a motion to approve them all?
And yes, in one vote, the three
Yeah.
that Ken referenced.
Yeah, I can, if you want, I can just refer to the sections. It's section 6A, 6D, as in dog, 6F, 6G, and 6H.
So I make a motion that we approve the waivers outlined in 6A, D, F, G, and H.
Second.
Second, third.
Motion made by Richard, seconded by Mike. Discussion, all in favor, Mike,
Aye.
Emmanuel,
Aye.
Richard,
Aye.
and I for me. Is that correct English? I for me? Anything further?
George, do we need, Charlie says to regarding section VC3, small c, about the road width at 49.5 feet. Did we vote to formally establish this dimension?
No,
as
you're going
meeting
to,
the
though.
requirements?
You're gonna have to. You're gonna have to as part of the certificate of approval.
I think the vote on the to approve the plan of this layout, we are in effect approving that width.
Okay, thank you.
I can say that the one revision that we're going to be making to the plan set is we're going to add in an index sheet to show and further better explain what the whole process is. So the index sheet is going to show the entire property with the proposed lots and the proposed right-of-way all on one sheet. So it's a little bit easier and it's also inconsistent with the regulations. So we'll have a revised plan to insert into the sheets.
Did that take care of the waivers that you've requested?
Yes, sir.
And you're going to submit a final plan with the index sheet, or
Yes.
so we would look for a continuance then? This is a public hearing. I'll ask for public comment if there's anyone out there that wishes to comment on it. Don't see anybody.
I found Charlie Rowley in the waiting room.
Oh, did you? Oh, yeah. He's muted. So I don't, what's the calendar look like?
Charlie, you there?
Yeah, Charlie just turned on his microphone. Have you joined us, Charlie? Maybe not.
I don't think so.
He may have to call in on the phone.
We were hoping to close the hearing tonight and for a vote if that's possible without a continuance. But if we need to, if us submitting an additional plan requires a continuance, then we'll be okay with that.
The only change on the plan would be the index sheet. Is that what I'm hearing?
Yeah, that's the only change.
And George, given that that index sheet is an addition, in the spirit of clarity and and it's not a effective change or anything to what's already documented, I think it's probably wise that we do move ahead with an approval with the condition that they do provide the index sheet.
That's kind of the way I was going, but I was.
Richard, make that a motion.
So I make a motion that we do what I just said.
I second.
Did you get that, Sonia?
Second.
Motion was made by Richard for approval with the pending index sheet he supplied.
Thank you.
Motion was made by Richard, seconded by Emmanuel. I think, yeah, I don't think there's any other comments on this since it was just creating legal frontage for basically what's already been done. With that, I would look for a vote. All in favor? Mike?
Aye.
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 Emmanuel?
Aye.
Richard?
Aye.
And aye from, oh, Charlie's calling me. Hello. You weren't able to dial in?
No.
Oh, I'm creating an echo. Let's let that out. We were discussing Rosebrook. Have you? Yes. I don't think we have any other questions. We went through the waivers and approved some and made some part of the plan approval. Is it your feeling we need to do a specific vote on road width? Mhm. Can we do it just in approving the plan submitted? Doesn't that cover the width? Yeah. All right. So I guess we're good with that one. Did you look at the online phone numbers? They wouldn't connect you to the Dropbox? I mean, the Zoom meeting? Okay. If I put it on speaker, I get a hell of an echo. That's the only. Not right this minute, no. I'll try it again, see if I still get the echo.
Okay.
No, that sounded pretty good.
Yep.
I don't know, we did the vote on that. I would look for a motion to close the public hearing.
Move to
Motion to-
close the public hearing.
Second,
Motion was made by Manuel, seconded by Richard. All in favor? Mike,
Aye.
Manuel,
Aye.
Richard,
aye.
and I. And that's, the next item of business is a continued public hearing on site plan review, major modification, map 87, lot 1, Seth Toby Road, Wareham Retail Management or Marketing? Management.
George, before you do that, do you want to have a vote for a certificate of approval to be filed on the subdivision? Did you make a motion on that?
They did vote to approve.
Okay, before they close the public hearing. Okay.
Yeah. We did a little backwards, but
All right, I get it now.
Mhm.
I'm sorry, Lindsay.
No, no problem. Yeah, so we had met with you guys several times. The last hearing, we had gone through the revised site plan that reversed the kind of layout so that it faced more towards the interior of the parking area. The only aspects that you guys were still looking for before taking a final vote were the elevation plans and response to giving Charlie a chance to review the revised plans and comment. We had submitted the elevation plans. Unfortunately, COVID-19 happened, so things got delayed yet further. I think our last hearing was early March. I know Charlie had made some comments and discussed things with Derek Redgate, our engineer, and he had reached out to Ken today just to make sure everything was in order. And you guys have our full and final plans now.
do you have any comments on that, Charlie?
Well, has the board seen the elevation plans and so forth that they have to vote on?
They're not here. There's only one. Unless, how many were sent?
Everything that was sent is on the is in the Dropbox.
Well, in terms of exterior view, the only one I see is the sign with the screens that I guess probably hide chairs or sitting areas. And there's a retail store sign and a restaurant sign, but nothing else.
There are
There's only one.
There are 7 images in that.
Yeah, I was going to say, there's
How do I get to
multiple,
them?
there's multiple elevations in there.
Sorry, let me see.
All of which are consistent with the design of the first building that was approved.
Oh, I see them. Okay. Thank you.
Refresh my memory a little bit. Was the use, drive-through use granted?
Yes, it was. It was-
Yeah, we had a variance back in December from the zoning board.
Seems like ages ago.
This is This has been a journey.
Did you get your questions resolved on the drainage, Charlie?
Yeah, the essential layout of the grading and so forth isn't any different than it was before. So I don't see that that would be any issue. You're
What
talking
is
about
the mechanical equipment?
Well, I think the overall, this is regarding the new site, but the overall, you had some questions. I had them all out and got the.
well, not exactly, no. I met on site with Representative Bruce from JJ Welch the other day. They've done some things out there that weren't shown in the plan, and I didn't approve them at the time I went out. They had a lot of crushed stone around the layout of the area that was not in a proper location, nor was it at a proper pitch. We've got some issues around the major drainage area with erosion. So there are some things on the site that need to be looked at. The curbing is not complete in some areas, and the idea was that they wanted to complete the paving on everything except the Starbucks site. But I think before they can start that, they've got to clean up some of the other things that are outstanding.
Yeah, and Ulrich has no problem with that. I mean, that's essentially construction management of the building one construction. The things that Charlie's asked that be addressed previously were taken care of. We certainly will respond to that. That's separate from the modified site plan approval.
There was one issue that came up with the discussion we had the other day, and that was with respect to the stone that is out next to the roadway. It was placed in an area that was not on the approved plans. I did talk with Mr. Connie about it, and we did, not Mr. Connie, I'm sorry, Mr. Redgate.
Yeah.
About it. And said that it could stay there temporarily, but eventually it would have to be moved. It's not on the site plan where it should be. So if you want to leave it there, it should be done with a time limit on it. Because
That's fine.
And the curbing needs to be put in there anyway.
But things are, cooperation is moving forward.
Well, from time to time, we have our issues. It's been a very disjointed type of construction project. Probably one of the more difficult ones to try and look at and say that things are really making progress. I assume at some point we'll eventually get there, but it's not very well organized at the present time.
Again, I just want to emphasize, I've put myself out there as a contact. If there's issues with the general counsel, if anybody informs me, it'll be taken care of immediately. Those things you've mentioned being construction management issues, I'm happy to get on the phone first thing in the morning to address them. They're not site plan per se, but whatever needs to be done to make the construction comply with your standards will be taken care of. I need to know about it in order to be able to follow through.
Point taken. Anyone have comments on the elevations that have been submitted? Or on the
Where is the mechanical, Lindsay, where's the mechanical equipment?
I believe it's rooftop.
It's not shown.
I don't, unfortunately, being at home,
Yeah.
don't have the plans open right now.
It-
Ken Buckland, can you check the plan to see if it's shown?
It's not. I'm looking at the photo. I'm looking at the renderings. the roof-mounted mechanical equipment is not shown, and the parapet seems to be shallow in order to not, so that possibly will not shield the equipment. Now, if it's mounted towards the center of the roof, okay, but if it's mounted, if they're located, so we need to see where the equipment is sitting, Lindsay. And the other comment I would make is that
it would be fully screened, so it wouldn't show on an elevation plan.
Sure, it should. Of course.
Lindsay, the rooftop is showing in the renderings, Lindsay, and there's nothing that shows mechanicals up there.
Okay. If you want to, as you talk, I can try to conference Derek in and get an explanation if you want. I'm sure that there is one.
Well, I mean, how can you illustrate it on the drawing that I'm looking at? That's the difficult part. I think we just continue this and have the equipment shown, however is proposed to shield it. And the other comment I would make is that the rear wall, I guess I would say, facing the highway, could use some visual interest. Those are my two comments. We should see where the mechanical equipment is located.
I'd like to see if I can get you an answer on that by reaching out to Derek. While we're talking here. I mean, the last hearing that we had talked, for an extended period of time about the plans, and only the elevations had remained outstanding. And then we've gotten continued for months further. Obviously, we need to get you what you need to see, but if there's an answer to what your question is, I'd rather try to get it to you now to get some closure rather than, there was concern whether we get a quorum tonight. Who knows how long this is going to drag out before regular meetings occur again.
Could we cover this by?
How about a condition that an approval would be subject to your approval of the mechanical layout, something along those lines,
or the screening of the mechanics?
Yeah. I mean, they're going to be fully screened anyway, so.
Mm-hmm. Would that expedite things, Emmanuel?
It's up to you. I mean, if you want to make the approval on the basis of a contingency, sure. I mean, I'll whatever the board decides. The fact is that we don't have all of the information in terms of visual terms to make the decision.
So, Lindsay, this is Richard. Did I hear you say you do not have the renditions in front of you at this time?
I don't, unfortunately. I wasn't able to do both at the same time. So
I have to. I want to be very clear in that Emmanuel's points are very well taken. And if you want to bring in your other person to hear the discussion, I think that is appropriate, and I'm willing to give you a couple minutes to do that.
That would be great if you don't mind.
Is that all right with you, George?
I thought he was in the process.
Hopefully it'll be 30 seconds.
Yeah, good. Go ahead.
Okay, great. I'll be back with you momentarily.
Mm-hmm.
So while Lindsay's doing that, Emmanuel, I want to make sure I understand your points, because there are a couple. What I heard you say was exactly what popped into my head. I'm looking at rendering number 2 of 7. It's the picture basically from the intersection.
Hang on, Richard, wait. The first one is the back of the building with the sign retail store, very close, right?
Go to the next one. Go to the next one. It's the shot from the intersection.
Yep.
And what I heard you say rang very true with me. My first observation was I can see the roof. I'm going to see all the HVAC equipment, and I'm looking at a very dull wall.
Yes.
Facing our road. Is that how? Is it?
Yes.
Did I?
Exactly. No, right on.
Yeah. Speaking of the drive-through side, Richard.
Yeah.
Yeah, I agree. That wall has no visual appeal at all.
Now I think that I think they've done a nice job of responding to the comments that this board has made about the drive-through configuration
Yes.
and simpling it and making it much more simpler and much more safer and getting the parking spots aligned better. I'm really pleased with that. And I don't want to get all hung up on this rendering because these renderings are trying to show and not be exact. They're trying to show a concept. So hopefully Lindsay can come back and hear what we have to say about. We've got to have a good visual presence facing this street. We're advertising Wareham to all these people driving by.
Right, and if you look at the third picture, I think, wait a minute, excuse me. 1, 2, 3, and the 4. And the fourth one, it's just a big box sitting there.
Yeah.
And the parapet is low. And if the equipment, it can be as much as 3-4 feet high. And then, of course, it sits on legs, so it's not sitting flat on the roof. So now you've got the top of it at 5 feet high above the roof. You're going to see it.
I think these are easy problems to fix.
I agree. And although I prefer presentations with perspectives, I like them better when they're from ground level, which is more real. As to how you would perceive it as a pedestrian or in the car, and these bird eye views are not as helpful, but of course they have the information. It would be very easy to show them in elevation and show on that and to locate the equipment, and then you can draw sight lines. But you can't do it by telephone. I mean, it's very nice to give them the courtesy to do this, but they have to do it in a visual form. They're nice renderings. I mean, the technique is very nice.
And you'd like to just say the stuff should be screened, but I've seen some really ugly screening too. So you want some review about it.
Yeah, notice on page 3 of the renderings, I'm looking at it in a PDF reader, and it tells me what page I'm on. It's the one that shows the red car.
Yep.
Do you see the 6 screens?
Yes.
I'm wondering what those are.
I thought that they shielded tables and chairs.
I think that's on the other side.
But I got some windows there. There are some awnings.
Yeah, I'm starting to think that I don't want to put a whole lot of faith in the exact accuracy of these drawings. Like I said, they're trying to show a concept as opposed to an architectural blueprint. And to Lindsay's point earlier, I'm very happy with the concept here. And Emmanuel, you're bringing up some good points about a level of detail that's not shown here. And I'm wondering how we can give Lindsay and his team, I don't know, I want him to walk away with the ability to move forward. I don't want to hold him up, especially given how hard it is to execute these meetings these days. I mean, an approval contingent upon an approval is something I'd be very willing to listen to.
Charlie, are you hearing all this?
What would we be approving?
We'd be approving the concept with the requirement that they come back and show us detailed architectural elevations that show mechanicals in place. What do you call the edges that are supposed to hide them, Emmanuel?
The parapet.
The parapet? With the
Hi,
parapet.
it's Lindsay, I'm back.
All right, go ahead, Lindsay.
Derek Redgate is getting on right now, so he'll be there in 1 second.
All right.
The project engineer, and I
I'm
told him what
on.
the concern was.
All right.
Hello, everybody. I'm on.
Who's that? Steve?
That's Derek.
This is Derek Redgate from High Point Engineering.
Oh, hi, Derek. How are you?
I'm doing well, thanks. Doing well, thanks.
Did we interrupt your TV program?
I know this is exciting. I've actually done these before, so they work quite well sometimes.
So, Emmanuel, would you like to walk through the concerns we've been talking about?
Hi, Derek. We would like to know where the mechanical equipment, which we presume is roof mounted, is located, and how it will be shielded from being visible from the street. And the very nice renderings. I mean, in general, the quality of the renderings is fantastic, but also points out that the building has a low parapet. We would like to know that it is sufficient in height to shield mechanical equipment. And also the wall facing the street, which right on the first photograph that we're looking at has, it looks like 3 awnings with 6 screens in front of them. That wall is bland and needs some articulation to make it more visually appealing. And those are the two main things. But the issue with the traffic and the car flows and all that, you've resolved very well. I think all the members are in favor of that. But frankly, because these are bird's eye views, it is difficult for us to ascertain the visibility of the mechanical equipment from the street. And ideally, there should be flat ground elevations so that we could see the sight lines from the sidewalk, from the road to the top, to the roofs and to the equipment.
Sure. So I am not the architect. The architect is Detroit Architecture, but I will say these are small, very small retail buildings. They don't have a lot of mechanical equipment on the roof, and it's not overly sized. The parapet, the purpose of it is to shield mechanical equipment. What I can say is we can update these and provide them to you, and stress the concern of seeing mechanical equipment probably from the elevation closest to the road, which is the east elevation.
Well, from any view, but
from any view, yeah, exactly. But these are small retail buildings. They don't have a lot of mechanical need. They're small square footages. Can update that and answer that question for you. As far as the east elevation goes, now that I'm looking at this, there were improvements made to it that aren't shown on this elevation. So I'm looking at the date of this, and it's 3/19/20. There was definitely one more revision by the architect that was specifically done to address that question, which we had at the last meeting. So going off my memory, what I can do is I can forward that to Ken either tonight or tomorrow. But I know that they had done some planting boxes. They had made the area in front of the building a little bit wider from the drive-through, so they could show some screening. And I believe they were some sort of planters boxes to beef up that east elevation a little bit.
Derek?
Yes.
Derek, there's also the consideration that there'll be a restaurant in there. It will have exhaust stacks, and see all of that stuff needs to be anticipated I'm not saying we need working drawings of the mechanicals, but an assurance that the HVAC equipment, the condensers, the restaurant's exhaust stacks, they have to follow certain distances from roofs and other equipment. So we don't want to get a surprise at the end when you're going for a C of O. We'd like to see it now.
Yeah, understood. So I can relay that to the architect, and the best I can do is say we can submit that, so you'll see actually exactly what that'll look like with those concerns.
Thank you.
George, you
Ch-
there?
Charlie had a question.
No, just clarification. Richard mentioned the view that has the red car. When you look at the site plans, I think those little brown rectangles there are overhangs for 3 doors. And that's all that's on that wall.
Ah,
So you've got the sidewalk, you've got the 6 planters in front of the sidewalk, and then you've got the 3 doors behind that. That's all that's on that wall.
Well, Richard, your mic's not on.
Derek, if you would take a look at rendering number 4. Shows the 3 telephone poles with the building behind it and the red car in the line in front of the planter boxes. Are you with me?
I am not. It'll give me a minute to
That's fine.
find the drawings you're talking about.
I'm looking at a file that's titled 19-85 in parentheses Wareham-C renderings.pdf.
Yeah, take me a minute here. I know exactly where it is. I just have to
Take your time.
locate it on. Okay, sorry about that. So I have the rendering open with the you're talking about the one with the red car?
I'm looking at, right now, I'm looking at picture number 2. It's the bird's eye view looking across the intersection at all 3 of the buildings. I'm looking at a PDF that has 7 pages. Number 3 shows the red car very clearly.
Yep. So I have number 3 open.
Go to number
3 of 7.
Go to number 4.
Okay.
So this is the bird's eye view looking across the intersection.
Yep.
All right. So I'm looking at the 3 buildings there, and the Starbucks building in this rendering looks like a shipping warehouse, as opposed to the Aspen Dental building and the other building farther to the right. If you look at drawing number 4, you get it even looks more so that way. And this is a building that's right on Toby Road.
Okay.
So we're concerned about the visual aspects of these big blank walls.
So what I will what we'll probably say they did here was they focused a lot on the site and the cars and the circulation, didn't focus a lot on providing a ton of detail of the signs and the colors. So I agree with you. It's different than how they've shown the Aspen Dental in building number 3. Not without the architect, not 100% positive of his intent here and what these renderings are to show. But we could ask them to beef these up a little bit for their true intention. I think that's a valid comment.
Yeah, Derek, try to be specific. They show plenty of information. It's just not, as Richard said, it's a big box. There's no detail to it.
Yeah.
And the other, sorry.
I don't think building number 1 is up to scale with what's shown in these renderings for building number 2 and number 3. And I think the intention is that they will all be of similar quality. So,
well,
I think we can revise these one more time to show.
Yeah, not to belabor the point, but when you look at Aspen Dental, and then to the left you see this building, you can see what's missing in it.
It's pretty bland, yes.
Yes, thanks.
So Derek, I'm sure that what I anticipated that this was the situation that the architects of Starbucks building at this point, and what you're hearing from me right now is I'm seeing an image that scares me, and if I saw a picture where the Starbucks building looked as pleasant as the Aspen Dental building, I'd have no issue at all. And I'm good to go with this entire concept and where we're trying to take this. And I do want to get there, trust me.
So I think this is more of a case of, we met on the 9th and COVID sort of happened that next week, like around the 15th, 16th or 17th. So we were scrambling to, be prepared for the very next meeting, which was on the 23rd. And I think everything sort of came to a stop and communication was sort of tough that time. So I think you have a valid point, and we'll revise these same renderings. It'll still be a 7-page rendering document, but it'll show that building number 1 of the same quality as both 2 and 3, because that's the intent all along. And certainly Starbucks has a big say in their architecture and signs and colors and awnings and all that stuff. So I can say with confidence that that is the intent.
Well, and I think a lower angle might prevent some unnecessary screening too.
George?
Yeah?
The site plan set shows a series of elevations for the buildings. So I'm assuming that they'll be updated too?
Yes, they'll match. Yep.
Mm-hmm. What's your clearance on your drive-through? Vehicle clearance.
There's an elevation. There's a 12 feet clearing height on the awning or the pickup of the drive-through. Is that the question?
Yeah. It's just that this whole closure has illustrated to me that not too many drive-throughs accommodate a 9-foot-high vehicle. I think they're missing out of the market.
The plan does not show, George.
Yeah.
The plan that I'm looking at does not show a canopy over a car.
Oh, even better.
It's actually
And ask Charlie where he sees the elevations on the site plan?
There's a series of plans to the right of the pictures,
I don't have them.
way over on the right.
Oh, You know what sheet are they on?
They're at the end of the set. I had them up on my screen and now they're gone. I'll get it back.
So just,
Oh,
just to
I see
clarify, I'm looking at this a little closely. The awning at the front of the building is the 12-foot clearing height. The drive-through window where you pick up your food and beverage, the clear height to that is 10 feet.
I think that would
Your
fit.
your 9-foot truck will make it, but drive slowly.
Yeah, Charlie, I found them, thank you. It says preliminary east elevation, and that's the one that we're concerned about. And it's hard to read, it's difficult to read the dimensions. But it appears,
At the bottom.
Charlie,
Did you get that? There's a zoom feature on the bottom.
yeah,
Hit the little plus in the.
I got it, but I lost the drawing. When I click the zoom feature, it changes page.
You just gotta scroll back down.
That's what I do.
What I'm looking at with these preliminary elevations, Emmanuel, is with the 3 doors on the wall that face Toby Road, they've done a good job of screening with the planter boxes and the awnings over the doorways.
Yeah.
Looking at the preliminary north that has nothing but the drive-through window and an access ladder to the roof. And that side of the building, in my opinion, absolutely needs a little bit of attention.
Yeah. Top of steel is at 16.5. It's hard to tell. So Derek, it will be very useful if on these elevations, they would show of course, embellish the primary, the east elevation, but also show the location and the elevation of the mechanical equipment.
Sure.
And where will the restaurant exhaust hoods go?
Yep. Okay.
Thank you. Thanks, Derek.
No problem.
Derek, where is the fire department connection in this building? In the mechanical room?
Somebody's got a squeaky bearing.
I heard the question. Give me a minute here. So the fire connection, there would be 2 separate water connections for each tenant, and they're on that same elevation. They're on that same east side.
Okay, what's the final square footage of the building? 5,400?
Final square footage is, no, it's smaller than that.
4135.
Yeah, that sounds right. 4135 sounds right.
Does it still need a sprinkler?
None of these buildings need sprinklers, right? None of the 3 buildings sprinklers are required.
So where's the mechanical building? Excuse me, mechanical room.
So the actual floor plans of Starbucks are not at my fingertips, but the restaurant itself, you come in the front door, so all the bathrooms and mechanical are in the rear of the building, which is on that east elevation. That would be the rear of the building.
Just to be clear, the east end is the shared wall with the other smaller retail side?
The east elevation would be the wall of the building that you can see from Seth Toby Road.
It's the wall we want improved.
Okay,
Wall we want improvements.
yeah.
There's both sewer and water services are on that side of the building.
The sewer's on the north too for Starbucks.
So how long would it take you to produce these proposed changes or?
They've been traditionally very fast, especially with the renderings for some reason. They must have a person who's excellent with that software. So, if history repeats itself, they could probably have something by the end of this week.
Derek, this
Yes.
is Ken.
Hi, Ken.
One of the things I would recommend is that the landscape plan in the set be utilized to improve the landscape rendering as well.
Sure. So incorporate it to be not exact, but show. Yes, I know what you're saying.
It shows a lot more foundation planning beds in the than shown on the
Landscape. Okay. Yeah, we can do that. I'm not trying to change the subject, but Ken and Lindsay, did we address the phase 1 plans that I think is sort of a second part of this puzzle that we're also trying to get approval from the planning board? It's the 2 1 plans that are part of this set that show the interim condition, which is basically the condition that has been constructed now with just the one building, the Aspen building, that it'll allow that building itself to at some point open prior to construction of building 1 and building number 3.
We had discussed it at the March 9 hearing, and that was part of this submittal. We haven't discussed it tonight. If there's follow-up questions that need to be addressed.
Okay.
George and others, if you look at that plan, it's in the site plan set. It's the 8th plan in the set.
I'm sorry, I didn't hear what Charlie said.
You're saying that the phasing plan.
Talking about the phasing plan is sheet number 8 in the set.
The interim traffic
Cover
plan.
page. It's 8 of 17.
I'm happy to walk through it once people get to sheet 8.
This is the sheet that shows the dark driving routes around the Aspen building.
Correct.
That's right, Richard.
So before we jump here, I'd like to back up just for a second back to the rendering issue. The plan is right now that hopefully by the end of the week that we'll have some updated drawings, and that we can look at those and hopefully, and let's assume that they meet everyone's satisfaction. What is the plan to move forward on that? Are we meeting again next week to vote and try to keep this project moving forward, or is that our plan, George and Ken?
That's a question for the board as to whether they're available or wish to do that.
But I guess my real question is to Lindsay and Derek, what are your expectations? What are your requirements? And what are you up against right now on getting this moving forward?
Sure. So first and foremost, as we've said from the outset, is the board has to be satisfied. And that's what counts the most. So we're not looking for any approval that is not yet timely. Obviously, the sooner that we can get an approval, the better. We think that we could get revised plans to you and answer any other outstanding questions, to be able to do a meeting next Monday if you'd accommodate that. If it's not possible under the circumstances, whenever you're available.
Okay, that's fine. That's all I needed to hear. Let's move on to the phasing issue then.
Okay.
George, if I could point out a couple of things.
Sure.
If you look at the phasing plan and then compare it to the sheet just before it, it would be sheet 7.
What sheet number?
Sheet 8 is the phasing plan.
And sheet 7 is the utilities plan.
Yeah, but it shows some other things I wanted to point out. I'll wait till everybody's got it.
8 of 17?
Yes.
I'm looking at Aspen Dental.
That's correct. Everybody got it?
Yes.
Yes.
I'm there.
Go ahead.
If you look right in the middle of the sheet, there's a triangle area there. And in the middle of the triangle, it says riprap erosion. You see that?
Yep.
Okay. Now scroll back up to the page before. And if you look on that page before, you'll see there's no riprap.
So there's not consistency between the plans.
Right. What I'm suggesting is that with a part of this phase, I don't see any reason why you couldn't begin the returns for that portion of the parking, which is not a part of the Aspen Dental plan right now. remove that stone and just put the curb in at the beginning of that parking area the way it shows. And you could use that stone later on for the riprap that's supposed to be adjacent to where the cars go and park. On sheet 7, it shows a sort of a gray parallel line at the edge of the parking spaces.
Right, so it just goes further west.
Right. So if you just began the returns for the curbing that goes in there, which you're not going to build right now, you could stop it, put in the grass, which is temporary, stockpile of stone, and build the curbing for the rest of it in the Aspen dental plan the way it's supposed to be.
Does that work, Derek?
It works. It doesn't solve. I mean, it makes total common sense in phasing of a project. The reason we did it is the Aspen Dental was bid to a contractor who is finalizing the site. He's also proposed to bid possibly the Starbucks, but he hasn't been signed up to be that contractor yet. So there's also a contractual phasing issue here that we're trying to deal with. So what Charlie's suggesting makes common sense. I think we could make it work if you really felt strongly about it. I would prefer to have the interim condition as we've shown it with the riprap that's installed today, so that contractor can complete his work and leave it in a condition that the planning board knows it's going to be left in. I will say, once we do get approval for the Starbucks, there will not be a great deal of time that we will be in this interim condition with the riprap located where it is. I would say
They want to get going immediately.
they would like to get going immediately. So I would think within 6 months, this is only the spring, so we have all summer and fall, that the interim condition would not last very long. When we first proposed this, it was more of an unknown, but right now it's looking like it's not going to be a great deal of time. So we would prefer to get planning board's approval on this interim condition, and knowing that it won't be for very long, given that we're at this point now with the Starbucks, and proceed that way. That is what we prefer.
What are you putting in now? You're just putting in binder as shown on sheet 8?
On which sheet?
The C700 phase 1.
Yeah. So that's going to be binder and then top course.
Well, then it makes some sense to get rid of that stone and put the curbing in where it belongs. You can't put the binder in, put the top coat on it, remove the stone, and put the curb in and have it put in the way that it should be. It's got to be put in now so that the binder can be put up against it along with cement. And then you top over the cement with the wearing surface.
So you're saying that the curbing will never be installed to the same quality if we go through this sort of phasing?
That's correct. Not the way you've shown it.
Well, not without patching the asphalt, correct?
Yeah, you'd have to patch the asphalt to cut it. I think there is a way to construct anything.
That makes no sense. Because the last time I had a phone call from the contractor, he wanted to finish the paving as shown on sheet 8. I have no problem with that. But I have a problem with that riprap because it was never shown on an approved plan. And it would be easier to just return the curbing where it's supposed to go and be done with it.
So let us reach out to the client because they'll need to amend their contract to increase the scope of work if under the existing GC's contract, they have to do that work. So we're not in a position to be able to comment without confirming with the client. Message received that that's the order in which the work should be done. And we'll get back to Ken as soon as we can prior to the rescheduled or continued meeting, just to confirm the ability to do it.
Lindsay, if I could just follow up with that. You see that little drainage area that is directly in front of Aspen?
Unfortunately, I had said at the outset, I don't know if you were on, Charlie, where I am at home right now, I'm not able to look at the plans.
Oh, okay.
So I'm going to defer to Derek on the plan.
All right. Well, it's a small drainage area that has a paved waterway extending off into it with riprap stone.
Okay. Yeah.
That area was completely built the wrong way, was not finished. And it's got to have additional curbstone anyway. And there may be other places where they may have to adjust the curbing. So I would suggest that they've got to rebuild that drainage area anyway to put in the proper slopes, give the proper landscaping area, and then remove the stone that's in the middle of it because you should only have the paved waterway and the riprap stone. The rest of it should be as per plan. And then they completely misread the drainage area that is out next to the secondary access, and they lined the edge of that with stone. So they've got some changes to make in order to make the plan conform.
Yeah, so we're aware of that, and they're currently going to make those changes. All that you just described is going to happen.
So Derek, before you got on, Charlie had a couple of other additional items from the existing construction management perspective.
Okay.
And it sounds like at least that one you were aware of. I would ask if you don't mind, Charlie, either sending us directly or through Ken, a bullet point list of the items that you mentioned that for existing construction work need to be addressed. And then we will get on it with the client immediately.
I assume that some of the things that we're talking about will ultimately be addressed. But if you would prefer, what I can do is do a walkthrough of the site, make a list of the things which I think I need to be paid attention to. I will send the letter to Ken along with the board and a copy to you and Derek. Because I think I should maintain my directive through the planning office.
Yeah, that's why I had said if you wanted to send it through Ken. And again, there's two items here. One is construction management of what was an approved site plan, and then there's the modification of the site plan. So I'm happy to do as much legwork and chase people on the construction management side. Anything that is specific to the modified plan, if you can note, that's a comment that needs to be addressed in connection with the approval, that'd be helpful.
Which modified plan are we talking about now?
This hearing, the amended site plan approval and interim conditions approval.
Which includes Starbucks as well as your phasing?
Correct.
Okay.
To that end, what is the board's feelings on a additional meeting possibly next week.
I'm available.
I'll be available, George. I mean, we got to help him get along, but we also want to see the work that they need to do. If they can do it by this Friday, I'm available next Monday.
George, what Emmanuel just said goes for me.
All right, and we can check with our absent board members, and maybe they'll have a little more, be more proficient at signing on by then. So,
We do appreciate it very much, and hopefully we can bring closure with one more meeting.
Yep, I agree. And we'll do our best to we'll get you something by the end of this week that'll give you the weekend at least to open up the PDF, look at the renderings and the elevations, and be comfortable with what we talked about tonight.
that would be
Okay.
great.
All right, so if I may, George, it's very important, I think, that we keep. I hear three categories of things that we need to do, and one is we need to approve the Starbucks building, and we've talked about the renderings and what we're looking for there, and it's clear to me that Lindsay and Derek understand that, and two, we have a question in front of us about a phase transition to get Aspen Dental up and running, and that seems pretty clear cut. But most importantly, I'm hearing a lot of concerns, and I've heard these almost every meeting, and that's on construction management. And Charlie's doing a nice job of keeping this board up to date on the issues that he's finding. And Lindsay and Derek, you guys are very responsive to the comments that Charlie brings up at these meetings, but I'm worried about what's going on between the meetings. Typically, when I see large projects like this going on, and Charlie's heavily involved with the day-to-day activities and looking at them, the problems are getting resolved those days with the project manager on site, and that doesn't seem to be happening here. That's just my impression, and I'd like to hear your response to those thoughts.
Sure.
Well, before you start, I would like to point out that that aspect of it is not part of this approval per se. That would be more contingent on their CO. But so I don't want to belabor this in a public meeting when it could be resolved in the field. But go ahead, you can respond to that.
Yeah, I appreciate that. We do view things holistically as well, and want to have a successful project, and that means doing it right from the beginning. It seems like that it's really a communication issue with the general contractor. I don't know if there's direct contact with anyone at Allrig, and perhaps that's the issue that, I don't know the situation or relationship with the GC, but if the asks aren't getting relayed up the chain of command, then no one who can hold the GC accountable is aware of the situation. I'm just speculating, but that would at least seem to me to be a likely scenario. One thing we could do is get a CC party that any notices, concerns, etc., that Charlie might raise with the GC going forward would get copied to someone who can be a secondary responsible party and follow up on them.
If you would implement something like that, I think it'd be very helpful.
We can do that.
I think Lindsay, that's a good idea. From my perspective, I've been told, Tim Breu and Bruce Tobin are the two site super. One's the project manager, one's a site super from JJ Welch, and they call me with questions all the time, clarifications. So we don't hear the feedback, whether, Charlie's inspections and what they're doing, what's going on there. I think maybe, some sort of meeting minutes or things in writing would help smooth that out a little bit. And I'm happy to get involved.
Yeah, if I can just offer my own thoughts on it. Recently, hasn't been consistent representation on site by the contractor. He's been there a day or two, then he's off, then he's coming back again to do something else. And if I mention something to him on one day, I might not see him again for 3 or 4 days. And by that time, the message is lost because there's not enough time gone on for them to make those improvements. So it's been hit or miss with the contractor. It went well at the beginning, but then he left the site, came back again. It was days, sometimes weeks before I saw him. So it's been kind of a hit or miss operation. There's been no real smooth transition from one part of the project to another.
I know that they're anxious to complete this phase one. So perhaps the next few weeks, with the nice weather and the COVID more in line with some of the safety precautions, that will be a little smoother and they'll be able to button up phase one.
Yeah, I would hope that would be the case. I think it would behoove us to have a walkthrough of the site with respect to phase one and the work that they've done to date that phase one was dependent upon, and see that all of those features are completed. Drainage, landscaping, or at least loam and seed, and proper protection of slopes, curbstones put in properly, that type of thing. If we have a list or a punch list of things that need to be done for phase one, then at least everybody will know what's on my mind, maybe something they can think about as to how that all can get completed, and we can move forward. But without having a site meeting and getting all these things squared away by all parties involved, it's going to be difficult.
Okay, I think that's a good suggestion, and I'll touch base with them tomorrow. What I will do is get a handle on their schedule over the next couple of weeks with the landscaping, and maybe maybe sometime around when the landscaping is being installed would be a good time to do a walkthrough, and I'll be involved in that as well.
I think it needs to be done before landscaping ever gets their feet in the ground. There's too much to do.
Okay, so we'll check their schedule and try to do it when they're done with the civil, quote unquote civil, before they move on to landscaping.
Sounds like a plan.
Okay.
Okay. We
Well,
appreciate.
gentlemen, don't go yet. I'm concerned about the pressure that we will be under next Monday to give an approval. In the order to enhance the chances of being successful next Monday, I would like to be able to see the drawings before and have the opportunity to comment through Derek or maybe through Lindsay. But it's always a difficult situation with feeling with a gun to our head if we see the drawings cold on Monday, and if they aren't satisfactory, then we're in the situation of feeling pressured to approve because you have to move. So what's the chance of getting these drawings by Thursday or Friday to Ken, that we can individually review them, send comments back through Ken? Seeing them cold on Monday makes me uncomfortable.
To back up what Emmanuel's saying, do we have to have our next meeting on a Monday?
Good point.
Maybe they need till Friday. Maybe they need till Monday to address all the points that we've raised today. Could we have our meeting on Wednesday or Thursday? I mean, everyone's locked in their house. There's no reason we can't.
Yeah, we may not be able to get the room.
Let's not lock ourselves into Monday. I mean, I think everybody on this call, on both sides of this issue, want to see this project to move forward. And so let's be expedient about it. Lindsay and Derek, how much time do you need to get back to us with documentation that addresses all the concerns we've talked about tonight? Is end of the week reasonable?
Yeah,
I think
Well,
I
let me,
was
let
gonna
me
say
just
Friday
make,
is definitely
let me just
reasonable.
make two comments. One, Derek had said he thought he was pretty confident we could have revised drawings by Friday. There isn't magic to doing Monday, and if building in a cushion works, that I have no problem about that. Just from my historical experience, both doing this as an advocate as well as serving on ZBAs and selectmen boards, whatever date you end up setting, oftentimes what happens is people still only review a day or two or three before. So the situation often is the same, irrespective of what date the meeting is. You guys are great and responsive. I would just ask that, if we do set it out further than next Monday, we all try to act as if it's Monday as far as getting comments circulated, etc. Point is certainly well taken, and we're far enough along that the extra days aren't going to make or break it. But we don't want to unnecessarily kick the can down the road either. Derek?
Yeah, I'm talking 1 or 2 days at most.
Yeah, we have no problem with that.
Emmanuel, you agree?
Yes. And to Lindsay, you don't know this board. We do look at the stuff earlier. So
No good.
if we can get it, because as Richard says, we do want to move it along. No reason to delay it, but give us the chance to see the response and give us the chance to, if necessary, make a further comment that could be resolved
Sure.
in a day or two. So we're all rowing the same way. It's
Yep.
just that we've
Just,
got to cross the T's and dot the I's. So
would you like to say Tuesday? or
Wednesday or Thursday would give us, I think, time to be sure and come to the meeting without questions.
Sure.
Thursday would be a conflict for me, but
Let's do Wednesday.
We can do it Wednesday. Yeah.
Wednesday's fine.
Wednesday works.
same time, 6, or
Yep.
Sure.
Works for me.
Sure.
would somebody make a motion to that effect?
Move to what?
Continue.
To continue the meeting until Wednesday of May.
20th?
Is it the 20th one? Yeah, the next Wednesday, a week from this coming Wednesday.
Yeah, contingent upon updated documentation being provided by the end of business on the 15th.
Yes.
Now, how's that work, Ken, with town hall being closed on Friday? Is information on Friday going to be circulated, or?
The information is going to be presented electronically and it can be circulated that way
Okay.
Great.
On a Friday.
on a Friday.
That a baby, Ken.
Maybe on a Saturday. Who knows how late it comes on Friday?
Yeah.
I told you, this board moves.
Motion was made by Emmanuel. Was there a second? I missed.
I second.
Okay, Richard. Any further discussion?
Same time, George?
Yeah, 6 o'clock.
Okay, I would have to leave the meeting at 7. That's all.
Okay. All in favor? Emmanuel,
Aye.
Richard,
Aye.
Mike?
Aye.
Well, it's me. Aye. Thank you, gentlemen.
Great. Thank you again.
Thank you, gentlemen.
Thank you, guys.
That's it.
Oh, I didn't ask for public comment, but I don't think we've got anybody there.
No, we don't.
Can I move to adjourn?
Yes, you may.
Motion to adjourn.
Second.
Motion was made by Emmanuel and seconded by, was it Mike?
Yes, sir.
All in favor, Richard,
Aye.
Emmanuel,
Aye.
Mike?
Aye.
I'm going to oppose. No.
Talk to yourself, George.
Yeah. All right. Thank you, gentlemen.
Great
Good night,
job.
everybody.
Great
Good night.
job tonight.
Yeah, with this thing.
Have a good night.
Great technology. Hey, why don't we do all the meetings like this?
Yeah.